everybody. Welcome to this episode of Think Business Exclusives. I'm looking forward to talking with Marci Shienbaum. Marci, it is great to connect with you. You are a private chef at Marci's Kitchen. And Think Community, those of you who listen know I'm a business coach, and my goal with not only this podcast, but my clients is getting people unstuck. And what I love about the podcast is my guests bring so much to the table to help you get unstuck. And I'm a business coach, but I always have people asking me about food and nutrition and, things of that nature. But I'm really looking forward to talking to you, Marci, because I personally grew up with my family cooking in a kitchen. And so it's the kitchen is a very meditative place for me. And so my first question for you is, what does food and cooking and prepping and a kitchen, just the whole umbrella of that, what does that mean to you, your soul?
I love that question because I always say, food is love.
Yeah.
I too grew up in a house where, my mom wasn't a fabulous cook, but it was important that we all sit down together when we could, because my dad traveled a lot for business. And then our house was always the house where everybody would come over. And it just kind of evolved. My brother and sister both cooked. And as my parents aged, our house was still the house where everybody came. Even, when we were out of college, we always cooked together in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And, I started my business really teaching my friends how to cook. They would come to my house and we would prepare food together, and everybody would leave with food. And so they were happy, their families were happy. And, when I get into the kitchen, I turn my music on and I just go. I love that. Like you say, meditative, like just chopping to me, I just am in my zone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then I can't cook, and everything I make tastes exactly the same. It's horrible, but I love the process, love the process of it. I always say to Joanna that when I'm 70, I'm going to become a chef. When I'm 70, I'm going to go to Cordon Bleu. I'm going to go back to school and become a chef. But let's talk about you. So you have this love of food. Food is love. You have this love. And I think a lot of times people are looking in ways to make their passion their business and monetize that. And I think sometimes it's hidden in plain sight for people, and sometimes they can't see it. Sometimes they can't see it ever. And so how did you recognize that not only was this something that you love to do, but that you could then actually turn it into a business?
So like I said, I always loved to cook and I always loved to entertain. And my friends would say, can you teach me how to make, schnitzel, for example, just breaded chicken, or teach me how to make something I can make quick for my family, because, you're raising kids, the kids are busy with activities, you're working parents, it's all about preparation. So on Sundays, they would come to my house and we would cook 3 or 4 recipes, and then everybody would leave with food. And everybody was so happy. They wanted to do it every Sunday. And so, right. And then I started posting pictures on Instagram, and people started reaching out to me. They said, please, we need you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started, totally organically. I was in sales my whole life. And when I kind of transitioned out of that, just raising children and whatnot, I just found that, I wanted to have food on the table for everybody and teach everybody. I love the teaching part of it.
Yeah.
And then people just started reaching out to me on Instagram. I swear, I would just take pictures with my cell phone. I didn't think they were so great, and I started doing meal prep for people. And then it just blossomed. People started reaching out to me. And I thought, okay, here we go. Like, it happened very organically. I was able to take my passion and, make it a profession. And this happened before the pandemic, probably like the summer of 19. And of course, once the pandemic hit, people couldn't go out.
Yeah.
People didn't want to go out. And I feel like people have really transitioned now into just wanting to have dinner parties at their homes. So what started as meal prep, cooking for, working families that are very busy raising kids, people who don't want to cook, elderly people who can't cook. It just spiraled, and it has transitioned, over the past 3 years. And
Yeah.
I still feel like I have so much more to go.
Yeah.
You're never too old to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, that is true. I love that. Wait, I have a lot of questions about what you just said, but I want to go back for a minute. I want to go back to growing up and the energy of your family in the kitchen and sitting down, and kind of the calmness and the tumult of that, right? So, what was it about? Just kind of, paint the picture a little bit of what that was like, and how you kind of put that into your business today.
So I feel like growing up, like I said, my mom wasn't a fabulous cook, but she always felt it was important. She was a really picky eater, actually. She didn't eat any fruit or vegetables. I mean, maybe a pickle and maybe a
Right.
banana, but she always was a meat and potatoes person. And my dad traveled a ton, and my grandmother lived with us, as many of our family members have, evolved
Yeah.
the Eastern European. So my grandparents lived with us, and then my grandmother lived with us. And so we always just had people over, and we would sit and we would eat, and the friends would always come over, and we always hung out at our house. And then I feel like we relocated to Miami in 1984, and we started making all new friends there, and people always came to my parents' place, and we always had dinners together. And then I just feel like it was tumult, and it wasn't, for me, I was always into like just working with people in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like that was what was the most fun for me.
Yeah.
And just creating new recipes. And then we would have parties. My brother and I lived together for a while, and we would have parties, and we would cook everything. My brother he's a great cook too. So everything revolved around food, parties at the house, and just people, a lot of people.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. When I growing up, my dad was a master gardener. And so we lived in this house where there was common area behind our house. And so my dad used it to plant fruit trees, and then a garden that was, it went from our house to the neighbor's house, because it was some of their best friends. So through this, not winter, but every other season, and my mom was a great cook. She cooked every night. Through the season, we would go out and pick what was ever in the garden, and then that was just kind of part of the routine. And
That's amazing.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And it was great. And but yeah, we always had family and just a lot of food. So I agree with you. Food is love. I need food to stop being love for me from the hours of 7 to 9 p.m. because that's like where it's like getting me in a little trouble. But yeah. So I want to touch about the kind of like mindset and business element of something you said earlier. You talked about the hardest part for people was just kind of the preparation, and I find that in what you said, but I also find in business in general, preparation seems to be very challenging for many people, and in its kind of simplicity, it's so easy, it's complicated in many ways, right? It's just the structure of preparation and the routine of preparation can be difficult. And so just talk about, how you prepare and the routine and how you prepare. Because I think people can kind of extract from that ways that they can prepare in many areas of their business or life.
Absolutely. So I would say, in general, I'm a very visual learner. Completely visual. So of course it started with, what am I going to make, right? And how can I continue to be creative and, think outside the box. And I found that, you know, my clients, they like very customized food. So I just go with it. Yes. Do I have my go-to recipes? Absolutely. But I always want to be challenged myself in making something new and healthy. And people are very health conscious. And I love to cook health conscious. But I also love to cook very traditional, you know, foods, you know, Jewish foods, Italian foods, Mexican foods,
Yeah.
Middle Eastern food. So my goal is, like, on Sundays, I jot down a bunch of things that I want to make. I reach out to some of my clients to find out what days they want food and ask them, what do you want? And then some clients will say to me, what are you making for other people?
Right.
And it works really well that way,
Yeah.
because some people will just piggyback. They're not as particular, which is great. And then I have a journal, and that's the method to my madness. So I write down every day who's on my books. And then on that day, I write down what I'm making for who. And then I write my grocery list. And it's it's nothing, you know, technical.
Right.
It's all about writing your list. And my list always starts with, like, what proteins I'm going to make and the quantity. And then the other column is, what produce do I need and the quantity. And then in the middle, it's all pantry. And at the bottom, it's all dairy, because I do it according to how the aisles are in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I think that's can be very intimidating for people. They're like, oh, I go to the store, I don't even know what to buy. Well,
Yeah.
if you know what you're going to make first, then you know what you're going to buy. And I hear all the time people say, I hate going to the grocery store. Well, I like it. And I can be in and out of the grocery store quick.
Yeah.
I already know what I'm going to buy. And
Yeah.
I keep a very stocked pantry, so I typically don't run out of things. But I go to the grocery store every day. I really do. And I have, you know, if I know I'm going to be making like a lot of protein, I'll call my butcher ahead of time and have him prep everything for me.
Yeah.
And that way I just go pick it up. So I feel like, plan your meals, discuss with your family, think about what your week ahead is, what you have going on, and make some things ahead of time, like healthy breakfasts and lunches. I'm actually doing a segment next week on WDIV about prepping breakfasts and lunches, how to get food on the table quick with the family and do it healthy, because I feel like the packaged food, it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love thank you for walking us through that, because, you know, it's all about routine and the ritual of doing it in the order and being organized. And I think sometimes the differential between thinking about it, being frustrated about doing it, and just doing it is about allocating a couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
Just getting into that, building a space for yourself to actually do it. I find that people have such issues with that piece of the preparation. I just launched about 2-3 weeks ago this program where every Monday I do a planning video and send a weekly planners and do it with them. And so and then 2-minute kind of micro learnings every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just so people can kind of stay in the zone, right? So I did it because people, I find, need so much help with that structure. So I created this online program to try to make it easier for people in this hybrid world. I want to talk about, you know, one of the things, and Joanna and I have been going back and forth with you via text, and you've been making us some incredible food, and I can't wait to get kind of Monday's order. But, you know, you seem to be such a happy person and in alignment with what you love to do. And I think a lot of times right now, especially in a post-COVID world, there's still kind of this rattling of the nervous system where people are still in an adjustment period. And it's not just post-COVID, it's the news, it's inflation, it's you know, every interest rates and how that's affected, you know, people's livelihood. Excuse me, the price of gas. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And so I think when people are in an adjustment period, it's very difficult for them to take action and to almost even find the time to carve out to make that 2 minutes to even create the routine. So somebody who seems to be in alignment, what would be your guidance to get into alignment? because I think when you're in an adjustment period, it's hard to get back.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I would say that when COVID started, I stopped watching TV.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle the news. I couldn't even focus on it. It was so negative. You know, my friends were like, "Oh, did you hear how many cases?" I'm like, "I'm done. I'm done watching TV.
Right. The
I don't
tickler,
want
I
to
know.
know."
Yeah.
I couldn't take it. So
Yeah.
honestly, like, I look back, you know, because this was a very conscious decision. I stopped watching the news. I stopped watching TV. And I just focused on what was making me happy, which was being in the kitchen. And, you know, my kids, I was sending, you know, my oldest son to college right around that time that happened. He got COVID actually right before he left, and his departure was delayed. And it was stressful. Like, the house was stressful. People were nervous. Nobody knew what to expect. And so, you know, like I said, I kind of stopped watching TV and I focused on cooking, because that just organically made me happy, and spent a lot of time with my friends outdoors. You know, obviously nobody was going to anybody's houses, and I'm a very social person. So we would do virtual coffees and things like that. And you know, conversations tried to be more positive than negative. And I would say a lot of music. I started doing meditation.
Yeah.
That helped. I mean, I made a conscious decision, like, listen, you surround yourself with negative people, you're going to be negative. I got rid of one particular word in my vocabulary. I was just talking about this yesterday because I used it by accident, which was annoying.
Yeah.
Because people are always saying, "That's so annoying." Like, just be done with that word. It's not. Or when somebody starts a sentence with, "Well, the problem with that is," well, so those two things, I feel like, you know, stopped watching the news, stopped really watching a lot of TV, listened to a lot of music. I found a love for country music during that time.
Yeah, so did I. So did Joanna. I don't know. Yeah, I hear you on that one. Yeah.
Love it. You know, I turn my Sonos on and it's just music all the time. It's all on all the time.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I like quiet. People always say I'm kind of a low talker. I don't like loud voices or noises, or maybe call it a sensory thing. I don't know. I feel like we all have some sort of sensory something or other. And I just, you know, you get to a point in your life where you want to separate yourself from things that kind of, people that complain. And then that is infectious to other people. And they think, "Oh my God, you're right. It feels much better to just be light and not heavy."
Yeah.
So
good. Good. I love it. Meditation's a big, I agree with everything you just said. And just to kind of touch on meditation, it's been a big part of my life. I'm 50 since I was about 27, and it's great.
It's amazing.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I want to talk a little bit about your business, because you're talking about that it has grown and continues, what sounds like, to grow very organically. But you used to be in sales, so you know kind of the hustle of sales, right? And what that's like, and kind of that instant gratification versus kind of delayed gratification when it comes to, you know, growing a business organically. There was an article in 2008 in the Huffington Post that was titled, it was in the Atlantic, and it was titled, "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" And what it talked about is that, to no fault of anyone, technology is rewiring our brains, and it's rewiring our brains to be much more in line with instant gratification, not delayed gratification. And that was in 2008, before COVID, before a pandemic, et cetera. And so I just want to talk about the patience of growing organically. And I think you can speak to that because you've had a sales background and understand kind of what that world was like versus, you know, growing at just an organic level.
I feel like the number one thing that made me successful in my sales career and that makes me successful in this career is building relationships with people and connecting with people. Because even in sales, when you are introduced to somebody or you are making a cold call, the first thing they see or hear is your voice and your tone or your smile. And so it's all about building relationships for me. Oh, even in this business, and word of mouth and feedback. I remember when I cooked for you at the beginning, and I do this with a lot of my clients, like feedback is critical. I can handle it. Like everybody has a different palate. So if there's something you don't like, I want to make it better because people are very fickle when it comes to food. I mean, I know if I go to a restaurant and I don't like it, I won't go back, right? I mean, bad news travels much quicker than good news. So I like to make sure that I'm connecting with my clients and that I'm building relationships with my clients and, to keep that going. And, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes like my clients travel in the summer, they're not around, but they're always thinking about me and, that need that I'm filling for them. And I really do believe that it's about, because with the social media and Google, I mean, our children are growing up, we used to have to call information, get a phone number, write down directions. Now, Google it. It's like, we call tinfoil. It's not Reynolds, it's tinfoil,
Right.
It's brand name, and so that's when I was kind of determining what I was going to name my business. We thought of a million names and everybody just said, well, it's your kitchen. So just call it Marci's Kitchen. And that's kind of how it happened, organically. And I went to the Forbes 30 under 30 2 years ago in Detroit. And I was so inspired by these people. I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. And one of the gentlemen who I was with owned a gym. And he's a marketing genius. And he said, I'm going to make you a logo. And that was it. Like one day in December of 99, he sent me this logo and it just became Marci's Kitchen. And I, started an Instagram page in January of 2020. And it's Marci's Kitchen 2020 is my Instagram. And that's really where I get all my business. That's my social media hub. So I would say, just build relationships with people, accept feedback always, right? Because there's always room for improvement. We're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
So, and if I want this, I think when I turned 50, I said, I'm going to start aging backwards.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. Yeah.
And so now I'm like 43. I give away my age, but I just feel like I just changed my mindset. Like, I mean, we can do it.
We can. There are so many things I think that are reversible with our mindset and just being able to think and stop thinking about things.
Yeah. And my kids, like my older son for sure kept saying, you better start a business. Why are you waiting? What are you doing? So now I say to him, do you think this is still a hobby? He's like, no, Mom, like it's really, and I want to set a good example for my kids too, because you learn what you live.
Correct.
And then you live what 100%. You learn.
As a business coach, most of my coaching is one-on-one, and I do trainings and keynotes and things of that nature. But I also have a $15 a month program for people who just don't have the funds to invest in private coaching. Mm-hmm. And so for those who cannot afford a private chef, what are some things that they can do to make cooking easier for them? That they can, keep, like you said, keep your cupboard stocked with certain staples. What are things that are economical today with the price of groceries? It's really insane how much, you go to the grocery store, it's so much more expensive today. So just what guidance would you give to those people?
So first of all, I would say that people who are not prepared spend way more money on food and groceries than they normally would, because okay, it's 6 o'clock, you haven't prepared anything, you haven't thought about it, you're going to order DoorDash or you're going to pick up carry out. And so really, I find that my prices are in line with doing something like that. Okay, so let's kind of, it's not, yes, I cook privately for families, but if you're ordering even a salad from a Coney, it's going to cost you $20 or $25.
Well, especially if you're ordering it on Grubhub or DoorDash, right?
Right.
The fees are there, right?
Right. So I feel
Right.
like you're going to spend more money if you're not prepared. So I would say, sit down, think about what you like to eat. For one family that I cook for, I do a salad bar for her every Sunday, and I package everything separately. So I think this is important, and it will keep you healthy too. I chop up all her lettuce for her. I chop up all the toppings and put them separately. I make her a dozen grilled chicken breasts. So right there, she's got lunch for 5 days.
Yeah.
And then I'll make her a couple entrees that can hold over. And by the way, things as easy as roasting a bunch of vegetables, you can incorporate into a quesadilla, a frittata. So think about what you like to eat and then make a list and go to the store on a Sunday or maybe twice a week, right? And by the way, there's a lot of healthy alternatives in the stores too. I'm a big Trader Joe's shopper, and they have like bagged salads. Now, I'm not a huge fan of a bagged salad, but it's a good way to stay healthy, and you can do things that are kind of semi-homemade, right? So there's a lot of convenience things that are available in the store. I think people get so overwhelmed with, oh, what am I going to do when I get to the store?
Yeah.
Spend one day kind of just browsing through the store and pick up a few things here and there. And then I think make yourself a list of what you want to eat for the week and what your schedule is like. So you're going to know, I'll make like one big frittata and then cut it into pieces. And that way in the morning before you leave, you can grab it, eat it in the car, or even an overnight oats or like a yogurt parfait. I'll make granola like once every couple weeks, and I make it homemade and it lasts. And if you don't want to make it homemade, just buy some healthy granola and, some yogurt and then just go to the store for your produce to freshen up. Yeah. So I'm not a huge Costco shopper because I feel like it's just people go there and you buy all this stuff and then it goes to waste.
Yeah.
So I feel like preparation and just really kind of determine what you like to eat and make a list. I'm all about my list, and I don't put my list on my phone. So then you're in the store, you're like looking at your phone, and then you're like back. It's like just write it down the old fashioned way. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. Something I always talk about because I do a lot of time management training or keynotes, and I talk about, one of the things I talk about is write everything down. Let your calendar be an extension of your brain. And I tell a story about Albert Einstein that people would ask him his phone number and he would go to the phone book and look it up. And they would say, Mr. Einstein, you're the smartest person in the world. You don't know your own phone number? And he would say, I don't like to waste my brain power with information that's easily accessible. And I think it makes the preparation and the whole ritual of getting it out of your head and onto paper, because we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's just kind of how we wake up. And 80% are negative and 90+% of them repeat themselves every single day. So I love your whole routine of writing things down, because we have to, so we can open up our brains for other things and not.
And I do feel like just that reading it, you retain it better. So even if I'm, and I use Pinterest a lot to show, categorize a lot of my catalog, my recipes. And so even so, if there's a recipe that has a lot of ingredients, I print it out and I put it up on my refrigerator. So I'm not looking at it while I'm cooking, right? Because my hands are busy.
Yeah.
That way I can see it, and then I can kind of write some notes on it, you know? I am just that, I feel like you say, like, just get back to basics, write things down, you know, take notes on it. I feel like everybody's so zoomed in on their phones and technology, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, it's the best, but I feel like writing things down and having that routine, it works for me.
Yeah.
It really works for me.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. All right. You ready for a quick speed round?
Yeah.
Your favorite food?
Oh, everybody always asks me that question. I love brunch. Brunch is by far my favorite food
Yeah.
to eat and my favorite food to cook.
Yeah. 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 Do you have a favorite type of dessert?
I make a dessert that's like a fan favorite. There's two desserts that I make. One is called a pavlova. It's a meringue with fresh whipped cream and fresh berries. It's gluten-free. It's somewhat healthy.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. And the other favorite dessert is my mother's chocolate pistachio cake.
Oh, I bet that's amazing.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So, and it's nostalgic.
Yeah, my grandma has a banana chocolate chip bundt cake that I make a lot, which is a crowd favorite in my house. Yeah. But my favorite desserts are chocolate chip cookies, hands
Okay,
down.
well,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you some Monday because I'm actually making some for a party on Saturday.
Okay, good. I'll take one. I'll take one. I'll take one. Finish. Well, a book that's had the biggest impact on you.
The Old Testament.
Okay. All right. That's good. I studied Torah for a little bit, and it felt like I was for about a year and a half, and it felt like I was taking a business class. I kept on saying to the rabbi, like, this, I've read all this in my business books. Right. It really is. Yeah. It's powerful. It's powerful.
And it can be, you know, perceived any way, interpreted any way you kind of want it. So it's been impactful for me.
Yeah. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to find their love of food is
spend some time in the kitchen with me.
All right, good. And my last question, define yourself in one word.
Oh boy. Caring.
All right. I would agree with that. Marci, this is great. I've kind of known you more from afar because our kids have gone to camp together. I follow you on social, and now you're making some incredible food for my family, which we're so grateful for. It's amazing. But, you know, as I shared in the beginning, as a business coach, my passion is helping people get unstuck and keeping them unstuck, and having guests on my podcast, bringing that same level of wisdom and ideas to get them unstuck is great. So I just want to kind of highlight a couple of things that resonated with me that you shared. Think community, which is focus on what makes you happy, build relationships, and connect with people. Food is love, and make lists and have a routine and write everything down. You're a great example of following your heart, following your passion, doing what you love. I was just watching a movie, and I've read books on this, that even when you take 2 glasses of water and you put words on the water, that one is love, one is hate, they look different under a microscope. Just the sheerness of just the energy that's put on it. And so the energy, to me, that you put in the food that you make is a beautiful thing, and it carries your caring heart. So I'm grateful that you took time to share with us today, and that I get to experience eating your amazing food. So thank you so much. Think community. If Marci can help you, how can they connect with you, Marci?
You can follow me on Instagram at Marci's Kitchen 2020. You can email me at chefms@yahoo.com. And you can ask Jon how to find me.
All right.
But
Yeah.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thanks.
I'm going to need your help with some things I'm trying to manifest right now too, because this is just the beginning for me.
Yeah.
I have some plans you can help me with.
Okay. Then let me know. And if anybody needs anything more about me, you can go to jondwoskin.com. Marci, any final thoughts?
Don't be afraid to get lost in the kitchen. If you want me to come teach you a few things, I love working with people, and it'll make you feel more confident. And I think, let's just get together and cook a little bit.
All right, good. That sounds great. Marci, thank you so much. Think community, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.